Today's guest is my friend, one of my mentors, Dr. Dunn. She's a chiropractor, kinesiologist, author, speaker. She is the CEO of MyHappyGenes, which we'll talk about some today, creator, innovator of holistic kinesiology and holistic methylation, teacher and lecturer. For over 30 years, she has researched, practiced, and taught this technique to hundreds of individuals who, like her, are on a quest to find an alternative solution to allopathic medicine, more of a vitalistic versus mechanistic model. So, Dr. Dunn, welcome to Rhythm and Resilience.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. Thank you for inviting me again. It's great to see your face again. It's been a while.
Well, it's hard to believe we actually met about 5 years ago. That is so crazy. We met because of a friend of mine, Paul Jernigan, who happened to be studying genetics. And I got hurt in an accident, and I was worried that trauma would throw my genes into overdrive and create Alzheimer's. So I reached out to Dr. Dunn, and we actually use the word happy. So it's funny we're talking about happy genes today. So kind of give our listeners why you're so passionate about whole person health. And we're on Total Health Tuesday today.
Total health. Yeah, I am. I'm passionate about all aspects of it. You know, as I began to get healthy myself, but as I began to study, I felt like I had to know everything about every aspect of healing. You know, the emotional work, the structural work as a chiropractor, the nutritional work, the spiritual work, everything I could get my hands on. I thought it was all important. And I don't think you can leave out any one aspect without, you know, doing yourself a disservice and not getting the full picture. So yeah, I think it's all super important. The thing that it led me to, though, was looking at the genetic piece of it, and that was just a wild card because it affects all of those things. You know, as we did the quadrants for health with you, it was like the fifth element. It kind of was in the middle that affects all those other little aspects. So yeah, I'm pretty passionate about all pieces of it. I wish I could be an expert on all pieces. That's a little bit trickier.
Yeah, it's hard to know everything. Well, you're talking about the quadrants of well-being: mechanical, chemical, energetical, psycho-spiritual health. I invited Dr. J to come to Kansas City for our 25th year anniversary party, where we celebrated with about 450 community leaders and other practitioners about this thing, whole person health. And she graciously said yes. It's interesting that some people from that day, they remember the talk where you talked about your father and your bonus father, who both had, one was a smoker and didn't have lung cancer. I don't remember the whole story, but they talk about that. And today we're talking about this coronavirus, how the lungs are a vulnerable part for it. So let's dial it back. Talk about how you look at genetics and how you see it going in the future.
Yeah, it's a really big topic because I think in the past we had kind of thought it was a big black box that we couldn't access, and even if we could, we didn't want to know. You know, I don't want to know that I'm headed for Alzheimer's if there's nothing I can do about it. But we've come such a long way to understanding there's a lot we can do about our genetics. And so back to that story that you mentioned, it's kind of what led me into looking at genetics. You know, where in the past I had this big question mark above my head because, you know, my father died at 55 of lung cancer, but he did everything he could to get lung cancer. He smoked and drank and, you know, just stressed and didn't eat right and, you know, just was not healthy in any way. And my stepdad, who did those very same things, ended up marrying my mother after my dad died, lived another 30 years doing the same things. And I knew it had to be genetics. That's the only thing that could be different. You know, if the things that we know about lifestyle and diet and all the things that we think we know about staying healthy are true, then why did one person live so much longer than another doing those things? So the only wild card in there was genetics. And again, know how to get in there. We didn't know how to access that information. But since, you know, the genome project was really completed, we've really begun to understand that there's a lot we can understand about certain genetic variants and how they affect our physiology and what we can do to modify those genes, or, you know, that's epigenetics for sure. But how our diet and lifestyle actually influences those genes. So understanding what genes you're born with is critical to then understanding what your best diet is, or what your best lifestyle habits are, or what your best supplementation would be, or, you know, things you can do in your life that will really fit your genes and maximize your longevity and your potential and your health. So it's really a critical piece that we had not been able to get to until just recently.
Well, you mentioned the word epigenetics. For our audience, what does epigenetics mean?
It's on top of. Epi means on top of. So it's, you can have a gene, but it doesn't, and it may be associated, let's say, with Alzheimer's disease, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to get Alzheimer's. There's a lot you can do to turn a gene off or turn a gene on. And that is all influenced by diet and lifestyle and environment. So understanding that epigenetic piece here, just to bring home the epigenetic kind of concept. If you think about bees, the queen bee has the same DNA as the worker bees, but she's fed royal jelly, which has a lot of bees in it, a lot of methylated bees, and it changes the expression of her genes so that she's bigger. She's twice as big. She lives 10 times longer. She lays 10 to 20,000 eggs a day and is a superior bee in many ways. And it's only because of what she's fed. Same DNA, but it's expressed very differently. So it's one way to kind of anchor the epigenetic thought in your head. And if you listen to Bruce Lipton, he talks a lot about how you can change your genes, but he doesn't mean change your actual DNA structure. You can't do that to our knowledge unless you go in with like a CRISPR machine or something. But you can change the expression of those genes by changing your attitudes and your, again, you mentioned your environment. So, if my dad had not smoked, he likely would not have gotten lung cancer. And it didn't matter that George smoked, didn't have that gene. So it's that combo of gene, lifestyle that has to be there to turn a gene on and cause it to.
I kind of explain it this way, and you can let me know what you think about this, is I think about it being with the body's like this business, and it has these different divisions. And some of those divisions are losing money, some are neutral, and some are making money. I don't have the chemistry mind, but I do have kind of the numbers business mind. And
Okay.
so if you could figure out which business is losing money and figure out how to enhance that, at least to neutral or better, is that kind of what you're talking about through epigenetics?
It's an interesting way to think about it. Are you like maybe referring to, let's say, like a vitamin D receptor gene where you were born with an inability to really absorb vitamin D? So that would be that's the account where you're losing money kind of thing, is it?
Yeah. And we see that a lot in people that have autoimmune disease. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the genes that really started me on this path, was the vitamin D receptor gene. And it's so big because it does affect your susceptibility to autoimmune conditions. And so, if you go and get your blood work done, let's say, and it looks like your vitamin D levels are low, and you think, oh, I should take vitamin D. I should take a lot of vitamin D to get my levels up. And it doesn't work. It's because your receptors aren't working. You inherited a genetic variant that doesn't allow you to really absorb vitamin D. And this is the one that I had. And this is the one where I did the research and found that my father had, obviously I inherited my genes from my dad and mom, but he likely had it too, because there's this high susceptibility to lung cancer when you smoke, when you have that gene as well. So it's, so you could take all the vitamin D in the world, it's not going to fill up that account. So you have to know the key. You have to know the lock and key, how to work with that receptor and make the receptor kind of respond better. And that's where understanding your genetics is so critical. So to give you for instance, if you inherited genetic variants in that vitamin D receptor, let's say one gene from mom, you get one gene from mom, one gene from dad, and you both genes that you inherited from your parents are the wrong code for that receptor, then you're going to be reduced by about 70% your ability to absorb vitamin D. And that's kind of a big deal. So you can't take a bunch of vitamin D and make up for that, because it doesn't change the receptor and it just won't it just doesn't work. So when you start working with the receptor, what does the receptor need to work better? And that's the key. So it needs, vitamin A and vitamin K, and then it kind of changes the conformation of that receptor so that vitamin D can then bind to it. So that's the cool thing, is we can understand how to work with these genetic variants. And then once you do that, it turns on your immune system so that your T cells start to mature and you fight infections. But taking you back, Michelle, to the happy piece of this,
Mm-hmm.
this was also the key to changing my lifelong depression.
Mm-hmm.
So, understanding that, when you upregulate the vitamin D receptor, it helps your brain make serotonin and dopamine, those are our happy hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Changed my life. It was like, oh my God, I think I'm happy. I've never felt that before. I think this is happiness. It was like I had given lip service to it for so many years because, I listened to Wayne Dyer, I listened to Michelle Robbins' show, I listened to, all the things that are supposed to like make your day better and make you think positive and do affirmations. And it never really, it momentarily would help, but I never felt like that was my set point. And now I feel like that's my set point. And so it's a lot better place to be than Unhappyville, where I lived for most of my life. So I got to be pretty passionate about that concept, even through that one little gene that kind of really, it told me why my father got cancer and why George did not, and why I'd suffered from depression my entire life, and why I had Epstein-Barr virus for 40 years. And so even with all the things I knew, all the different modalities of healing I had, for 30 years, I couldn't fix those things until now, until we could get into the genes and really understand it. So it was a huge, huge deal for me. It was a huge turning point to kind of really understand the nature of the genes that I inherited and how to eat around them and how to supplement around them to kind of make up for these genetic variants. So I'm using epigenetics. I'm using supplements, lifestyle, and diet to change the expression of my genes.
I want to talk about Happy Genes because you've got some cool stuff out that, but I want to stick with this conversation for just a moment. So do you wonder, or I'm curious, if we look at the people that are expiring or transitioning because of COVID-19, to see what their genetic expression was, wouldn't it? Or what their genetic underlying, not their expression. Have you looked at that at all yet?
I absolutely have. And in our MyHappyGenes report, I have a whole section on it. It's your susceptibility to SARS, severe, respiratory syndrome, and COVID infection. And there are specific genetic variants that'll make you more susceptible. And we already know about, the ACE2. I think that's been in the literature pretty strongly. The angiotensin converting enzyme 2. If you've got genetic variants there, it makes you fairly susceptible to infection. And then the inducible nitric oxide synthase is another one. The VDR is another one, and the MX1. There are about 5 or 6 of them that are really critical to understanding. And I give you specific nutrients that you can use. If you get your report and you see those genes on your report, then take this kind of thing. So let me give you, for instance, the inducible nitric oxide synthase. That's how we respond to viruses. That's, we respond by a cascade of inflammatory molecules like, the cytokines, and it's our innate immune system. So when we get exposed to a virus, let's say your inducible nitric oxide synthase will make superoxide, peroxynitrite, hydrogen peroxide, and all these inflammatory molecules to fight the infection. Doesn't feel very good because it creates fever and inflammation and you feel terrible, but that's your immune system fighting. But there are things you can do to boost your immune system. If you have a genetic variant there, you're not going to mount a very strong attack. And that's when people get the sickest, because their immune system isn't able to just go in with a 1-2 punch and knock it out. And you can take some support for nitric oxide if you have that genetic variant. And that's like beets and watermelon or arginine or citrulline, or there's some specific nutrients in there. If you're reading your report and you go, oh, wow, I have that gene. Do this kind of stuff. So I created a separate report for that. And for the people that are on the call today, I would be glad to share that report with you. I have a separate report. I'll send it to you, Michelle, and you can forward it to people.
We'll just put it in the show notes.
Okay.
So that when people get their follow-up notes, are you guys enjoying the follow-up notes that kind of give you the nuggets? Well, Eleanor, who's sitting beside me, is the one responsible for all that, along with Zach, our behind-the-scenes guy. So what I've heard you say is that people can put the odds in their favor, especially if they know their genes, so that they are, instead of taking these 15 supplements that everybody's recommending to take to fight diseases, you can kind of dial it in.
Right, exactly. And that's what's critical. You can get so much more powerful response by getting exact with your genes, so with your genetic variants.
So
Some
hang on
people,
one second.
go ahead.
One second. If you guys have questions, this is a great time to start to plug them into the chat thing. Okay, go ahead, Dr. J.
So yeah, so there are certain things that people are recommending that could be contraindicated for your genes, is my point. So, we're a one size fits all kind of a gang, and not that turmeric is a good example, because everybody says, oh, take turmeric, it's anti-inflammatory, it's a great thing to, reduce inflammation and build your immune system. For some genetic variants, not a good idea, especially if you have an MAO gene, and it can cause more irritability and aggression and issues there. So it's really good to get a sense of, what is true and what isn't. Green tea, everybody says, oh, green tea, antioxidants, more is better. Not if you have a COMT gene, it's contraindicated there. So it's kind of fascinating to look at, what is your genetic makeup and what is your best diet and lifestyle around that.
Well, I've got a silly question for you, because this is all about me. I mean, this is, I'm the one heading the show. So what gene affects caffeine intake or alcohol intake? Is there a certain gene that affects that?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Caffeine, if you have a COMT gene, or if you have the NAT gene, the N-acetyltransferase, you won't process this caffeine as readily. And they classify them as fast acetylators or slow acetylators. So depending on what genes you inherited, and maybe you know what you are, because some people, when they drink coffee, they will not sleep that night. They're done. Other people, like, you can drink coffee all day long, and you can even drink it before you go to bed and you're fine. So it really depends on your genetics there. The COMT gene, that's our like stress gene. The people that have genetic variants there are the anxious folks. They tend to worry about everything. They're very creative, very energetic. They're go, go, go. Adding caffeine to that can make the whole thing worse, because they have difficulty already in breaking down adrenaline and noradrenaline. So you're adding more adrenaline to the system. So contraindicated there. And as far as like alcohol, the ALDH gene is critical. And maybe you've heard of like the Asian flush syndrome, where certain Asian populations will, when they drink alcohol, they'll have this flush and they feel terrible, instant headache and nausea and blah. Well, it's often because they have a genetic variant there where they can't break down the aldehyde that's created when they drink alcohol. So, yeah, I think I have an issue with this one, which is not very fun, because I kind of like to drink once in a while, but my body goes,
Yeah, me neither. Mike, I have about this much, maybe this much tolerance.
I know, it's annoying.
With my girlfriends in Mexico, they're like, we just need to get you up. I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen no matter how much I drink it. Right. So for the people that are new to this whole thing of looking at genes, talk us through the process and talk us through HappyGenes. So somebody says, you know what, I really want to put the odds in my favor. I believe as the country starts opening up, we've got to start thinking about, okay, if there is a round two, and I don't want to come from fear, and I could do that because part of it's in my genes, but what can I do to put the odds in my favor?
That's a really good question. So if you go to myhappygenes.com, all one word, and you can, if you have your 23andMe or Ancestry data already done, if you've already run your those reports, your DNA reports, then you can get the MyHappyGenes report off of there. You just say, analyze my genes, just click on that link, and it'll take you right to, it's $49 at this point. It gives you an incredible amount of information there, but it'll show you your risk factors for all kinds of things. It's just unbelievable, the amount of information there. There's also a little video on there that shows you how to use it and what it means and what to look for. I'm blown away by the general public going out and learning as much as they can about their genes. There are a bunch of different websites out there, and people are understanding what an RSID number is, or an allele is, or they're diving in, because it gives you an incredible amount of power, personal power, understanding your genes instead of having to go to your doctor and what do I take. People are done with that, I think, in a lot of ways. We want to know the truth, and we're not afraid of jumping in there anymore. It's like, no, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to get a PhD in me.
Yeah, a PhD in me. That's a great quote. PhD in me. So they can go to happygenes.com, get it analyzed if they've done Ancestry or 23andMe. You've got to download the genome. Do you have a written process, or they just go there and it's that easy?
We do have a written process. If you go to, I'm going to have to create that link. We've been on the verge of getting that one, but I'll get that one right away of how they download their raw data.
Yeah, well, we'll send you something that we give because Dr. Nab's in our office in Kansas City. One of your questions, Miriam. Dr. Jay's in Key West area. She's not in Kansas City, by the beach. Literally, if you look at her front yard, you see the water, which is just stunning. But we'll send you what we have, and then we'll kind of combine that, whatever, to help. So, but if they have not done their Ancestry or 23andMe, they need to go do that. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So here's some options. Here's an option that's coming up. We're concerned about the privacy issues of 23andMe and Ancestry, because you know what they do with your data. You know, they take it and sell it to the pharmaceutical companies, and I'm not okay with that. I understand they're trying to develop drugs that are more suited to your genetics, but it's just, I think there's an invasion of privacy that's happening there that I don't like. So we are actually getting our own DNA test, and it should be soon. It's going to be very soon, and it's going to be easier too, and a lot more data. So it will be a cheek swab rather than a spit. You know, the Ancestry and 23andMe, you spit in a tube and you send it back, and that's great. But for elder people or children, it's really difficult. So this is just a swab and you go in there. We're going to be looking at 450 genes at this moment, pretty close to 450 genes, which is a whole lot more than, you know, what you would get. And these genes are associated with, you know, your body chemistry, brain chemistry, et cetera. That's a whole lot more information than you would get with Ancestry and 23andMe. So it's going to be more complete for what we're looking at. And so that's coming soon. If you want to wait, you know, if you're in a hurry and you want to get this done, I'd say it's 75-80% of the data that you need to really get an accurate report. It gives you some really good information, but I just think the privacy thing is an issue. So everything that goes to this lab will be destroyed within 30 days. Your sample and your results gone in 30 days. As a standard rule. And then on our server, you put whatever name you want to put on there. You can put Mickey Mouse, you know, so there's privacy all the way through, which we're very concerned about. So that's
great. I'm glad you're addressing that. So if you already have Ancestry or 23andMe done, you could download the genome. We'll send you how to do that. You could plug it up into this happygenes.com, and then you'll be able to get it. They can get an idea of what they could be doing to enhance their own system like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
you need to see a provider, or?
Well, that's the next step. So there are 4 reports that you can get on this, on MyHappyGenes. The first one is the one that's available to the general public. The other 3 are available to practitioners. So we'll be signing up practitioners in the near future. And what it will do, Michelle, you know, speaking to you, you understand the biochemistry pathways we've been looking at.
Right.
The brain chemistry, the energy production pathways, immune system, detoxification, methylation, histamine pathways. Those are all in the second report. So the doctors that are understanding those pathways will be able to look at that and go, oh, your main issue is in energy production pathways. So let's focus there. The third report will have diet and lifestyle specific recommendations on the amount of protein, carbohydrates, and fats that are in alignment with your genes. Whether or not you should do fermented foods, not good for everybody. Whether you should do intermittent fasting, again, not good for everybody. Whether you should do soy.
So that's the third report. What's the fourth report?
Supplements. So it will actually print out a list of supplements specifically for you. And it takes into account the genes, the genetic pathways, and a questionnaire. So what genes you're expressing. And, you know, that brings in the epigenetic piece of it. You may be doing a lot of things already that are balancing out genes you didn't even know you had. You know, you're already meditating, you're already eating right. Those are not expressing at this point. The questionnaire just shows us where you're not in alignment with your genetics, and it'll print out a supplement report. So this goes directly to the doctor. The doctor can, or the practitioner can go over it with you and say, okay, here's your specific supplements. And they are physician lines. They're all going to be physician lines and the best of the best, the highest quality that we can get there. So we're in the process of beta testing the practitioners portal, and we're soon going to be asking practitioners to sign up. So people that are interested, can come to MyHappyGenes and say, where, who do I have in this area? And we can send them to a practitioner who's well versed in this. And this is cool, Michelle, because I know you like the holistic methylation protocol, but it's clunky and it's hard to use, and you don't have time. Frankly, you got other things on your mind. This is something that your staff could actually administer, and you could look it over and go, yeah, these are in alignment. I approve this list. Go. And you don't have to spend that hour and a half doing the holistic methylation that we've done in the past. The machine will do it for you. So it's kind of cool.
That is cool. Well, for those of you on the show today, I know some are joining us. Dr. J is one of the forward-thinking doctors in the country who said, I'm working with clients. I love the people I get to serve, and I'm not getting the results I know that the body can do. And Dr. J, I'm putting words in your mouth, but this is what I know about you of our 5 years together, is you said, there's got to be a better way. And the good news is you're a chemistry whiz. And so you just have around and just continue to figure it out. And so kudos to you. We're celebrating you and the work you're doing today. And I'm thrilled. I'm excited. I'm going to put it on my to-do list that I get my HappyGenes done this weekend. Okay. So you'll probably see it come across. I'll probably be calling you saying, okay. Because I've done, for the last 3 or 4 years, oddly enough, Dr. J, here's what I remember about our first phone call together. You may or may not remember this, but maybe because I've told you the story, is we had not personally met before. And Dr. J says, what, off your genes, I bet you people say you're really kind. And we had never had a phone call before. And, kindness is my religion. It's my way of life. So that's really fascinating to know that it was, that's in my genes. And also too, I struggle with anxiety. I've worked out a lot. I figured out why I get chiropractic care and massage and acupuncture. But me dialing in the right supplementations has been another level of healing. So I personally want to say thank you for myself and for the patients that I get, that the people that give me the opportunity to guide them. I truly think that you're really just on to something very much from a whole person health perspective. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that too. And I appreciate all that you're doing to just, oh my gosh, I don't know how you do all that you do. And this is part of that comp gene that you have. Oh yeah, exactly. So when I saw your genetics, I was like, I can tell you so much about yourself. And it was pretty obvious then after I met you. I was like, oh yeah, she's the classic comp. And the comps are super bright. They're born with high dopamine, and they're super smart and quick. They're quick to get concepts, but busy, always something to do. Anxious, yeah, that anxiety is in there too. Often don't sleep well, but they're always thinking, a little ADD, they have difficulty focusing. And so this is cool because we can dial in that comp gene and calm you down. And it's funny because, you talk to comps and say, all right, we're going to teach you how to meditate. And they're like, okay, I got 5 minutes, go, hurry up, nirvana. I got things to do. So when you get your physiology balanced, your whole body goes, oh, that's calm. I didn't know how to do that. So it's our physiology, and then your brain goes, oh.
Well, what's interesting about that is when you get calm, if you've not done your inner work, and then you're like, holy sugar, used to things being chaotic, and it's not chaotic, so you start throwing monkey wrenches in your life. Well, the good news is I've done a lot of work in many areas. I do feel more calm, just so you know. I do go to acupuncture. When I go to acupuncture, I say, look, what's the minimum amount of time I can be here for the maximum benefit? If you leave me here for 40 minutes, I'm going to be like pulling my eyebrows out. So my eyelashes out. So you're exactly right. And that's what's so fascinating about the work you're doing. It truly is a total health system that looks at this whole person and says, we're designed to be well. And how do we put the right expression out in those genes that are having, like I said, having hiccups and little small fires? Dr. J, what kind of guidance would you give our listeners today who say, you know what, I really don't want to do that? But from everything you've done, 30 years experience, like I said, you spend, you're a mad scientist now doing all this genetic work and teaching doctors and having people consult with you. What kind of guidance would you give our listeners today?
Without doing the genetic report?
Yeah, without doing it.
I think,
you know what, I'm not going to do that. What would you do?
it's a good question. I think what I would recommend is just a different mindset. I call it genetic compassion, and it has to do with understanding that you are the way you are often because of genetic variants, whether you're struggling with addictions or PTSD, anxiety, depression, um, weight issues, whatever it is, there are genetic reasons for it. So if we could stop beating ourselves up about it, for me, until I felt happiness, all I did was talk about to myself, my internal language was, why can't you just be happy? You've got a good life. What's the matter with you? Why can't you just be grateful? And so once I did get my body and brain chemistry balanced, I don't have to work at that anymore. That's just kind of where I live. But I realized I was beating myself up. So I think maybe thinking about it in a different way, like I wonder if there are genes that are making me this way. And then when we meet other people too, instead of like jumping to that judgment place of like, why don't they just calm down? Why don't they just perk up? Why don't they just go for a walk? Why don't, what we go there, right? We tend to go there with people. And if we can think about, well, that person's a grouch, there's probably a gene there. And I bet if they worked with that, it would change their whole physiology. And that's what we have found to be true. So it gave me a huge level of genetic compassion. So I think that would be the place to start, is take an inventory of what's really going on with you, really look at it head on, and then just park that question. I wonder if there are genetic variants that are making me this way, instead of it's my fault, I don't have willpower. That's my biggest message. And it's been just a complete paradigm shift for me to look at things differently. As a healthcare practitioner, I would tell people, do these things to be healthy, and they wouldn't, or they couldn't, because of their physiology. And so once I started balancing the physiology, then they could. So I just want to plant that seed there.
So what I heard you say is give yourself grace and be inquisitive about your genetics, the roots of who you are, as well as give other people grace.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to learn more, just freebies, you can go to my the holistic methylation site. That's with a W. And there are a bunch of webinars there that kind of can give you an overview of, if you want to jump in there, some of it's a little bit dense, it's genetics and biochemistry, but I don't think it's too dense. I tried to make it understandable. So if you want to learn a little more, you can go in there and watch the webinar. There are 5 of them, and just kind of tiptoe in and see what you think.
So I've got some questions around rhythm and resilience, and to our people on the chat, our listeners here today, this is a great time if you have any last questions. We're going to start to wrap up the show. In any love that you want to share with Dr. J today, I'm going to tell you she's been pivotal in my own well-being. How do you say that word? It should be just a huge game changer for myself, and how I've been able to kind of calm down the fire in my own brain. At the same time, just have more compassion for other people. And so thank you for that again. So a couple kind of quick questions. What have you done to build your resilience muscle during this last 6 weeks? Because you're a speaker, you're an author, you're out on the road. Obviously, you're kind of in quarantine there in Florida. What have you done to build your resilience muscle?
Well, it's a good question. Part of it is keeping my brain chemistry balanced, because under a stressful time like this, your defaults are going to come out. You're going to see them in big spades. Whether you're an anxious person, you're going to be thinking about, oh, the virus is going to get me, or I got to wash, I got to clean, I got to make sure everything is sterile. Or if you're a depressive person, you're going to be going into this like, oh, the world's not going to be the same, and or if you're an angry person, then you're going to be protesting. The government's doing this to us. It's really, you really see a kind of a blow up of your core personalities. And that should give you some pretty good clues about what's going on genetically. So for me, to maintain resilience, that's number one. I have to keep my supplements balanced and keep my lifestyle, again, around my genetic variants that are conducive to balance, keep those in check. But then we're very lucky. We can just go out in the water and go diving and get away from it and not think about it. So we feel blessed that we're in a beautiful place. And so it's a combination of those things. But resilience is one of the words that I use when we're teaching about genetic variants and how to work with them. Is that we're going for resilience so that you build this great amount of ability to weather the storm in your bank.
And sunshine's important, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, we're very lucky there too. Yeah.
We'll take just a second because we're going into the sunny season in Kansas City and around most places in the country. Talk about sunscreen and just for a nanosecond, because vitamin D is so important for the immune system, and we're having an autoimmune epidemic, and yet we put on sunscreen that keeps us from making vitamin D. Talk about that for just a minute.
Yeah, thank you. This is another topic that's very near and dear to my heart, because I think it's kind of silly to slather your body with carcinogenic substances to keep the very beneficial rays of the sun from reaching your skin. I don't think it's a good idea to burn and damage your DNA. So I created a product called Dr. J's Healthy Rays. And what it doesn't block the sun, but it keeps you from burning. So it's a little bit of a different concept because I think the vitamin D is so critical for your immune system, for bone building, for eyesight, for brain chemistry. It's just so, so critical. And the other piece, we're down here in the Florida Keys, so we dive a lot. And the sunscreens are damaging the reefs. They kill off the good, some of the good critters. There are endocrine disruptors in there too, hormone disruptors in there as well. So they're killing off certain species of, especially sea urchin, that actually get rid of the algae that's on top of the coral, and the coral is suffocating. So it's a big issue, not just for our health, but the health of the environment. So Dr. J's Healthy Rays is it's really safe and safe for people and keeps you from burning, but doesn't block the D. So is that kind of where you were going with that?
That's exactly where I was going. Two last questions. What gift have you gotten from COVID-19?
Oh, it's so many. And it's kind of like, really? So many, it allowed me to really focus on the MyHappyGenes because I was traveling so much, traveling all around the country doing these seminars, and I really wanted to bring this piece to the world, and it allowed me to stay home and really focus on that. We have a great family here. It's my mom's 94, and my stepmom, or my mother-in-law, is mid 80s, so she's here too, and we're just having a ball. It's family time, it's downtime, I don't have to think about getting ready to go to that next seminar time, and I'm kind of loving it. It's not bad. I really resent having to go to the grocery store and wear the mask when everybody's doing this kind of thing, but hopefully you can make it light and silly and pretend to have a gun and stick up. I don't know. But overall, I'd say the gifts are many, and I think we'll carry it forward. And I think a lot of people are getting closer to their families and remembering what the simple stuff is. I walk outside and I go, oh, look, a tree, the ocean. It's just gratitude, much more gratitude now because I've been able to slow down and see it.
Yeah, we've all gotten a pause, haven't we? We've gotten a little bit of a pause.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been really nice. I know when I was heading to the office today, I'm seeing patients Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays right now. And
wow.
Crystal said to me, "Oh, I forgot. You got to go to the office today." Because my office now is upstairs, and you've been to my house, so it's like, okay, to separate, which I'm loving. I'm loving working from home, so I'm probably loving it a little bit too much. But I love getting to connect and seeing Miriam every day, and Vanessa and Dorothy and Liz, and Bridget's back with us today. We missed you, and Deborah and Susan, for all of you guys for joining us today. So we're going to start to wrap up. What do you think is your medicine that you share with the world? I believe everybody has their own gifts. What's your medicine that you share with the world?
Wow, that's a really good question. I've never been asked that question before. Again, I would just have to say the compassion. The compassion is the biggest medicine I think that we all need, especially for ourselves, giving ourselves a break, from the internal chatter about how we are deficient. I think I want to change that, and I want to change the paradigm of how we think about health. It's very different. As you get into this work, you realize, oh my gosh, there's a reason why I am that way that I never knew about. So I'd say compassion is the medicine. Yeah. What about you? What's yours? Can I ask?
That's a great question. Probably hope and hugs. I don't know. I would say probably giving people hope. My treatment room's even called Hope. I'm kind of the person that continues to look underneath and why. Hence why I would say I know a little bit about a lot. I go to the seminars. I've been to your seminars and loved it. And I had all the light bulbs go off, but I'm not the person to dive in deep. I'm the person to help bring it out. Here's my biggest gift. I'm a people collector.
Yeah, a connector.
You're stuck with me the rest of your life. How about that?
Yeah, your connection, connection, collection, and compassion. I don't know. What's the other C? The C.
Yeah, it might be that. Curiosity, courage.
Yeah. Courage.
Courage. Yeah, do it anyway. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So you made me think of something real quick that I'll share, and then we'll wrap up. I was thinking about another one of our great leaders in chiropractic, James Chestnut. Mm-hmm. James talks about your body's sick because of two reasons: it's deficient or it's toxic. Mm-hmm. Deficient or toxic, and that makes me think about the genetics. You're deficient, so how do you make it more sufficient? And then how do you also get more purity if you have toxicity? So if your body can't detox the way it needs to detox, you're going to be toxic. And how do you get it clearing out the pathway? So just some great work that he talks about as well. So Jay, at this moment, this is great for our listeners. If you want to share some love, I wrote when I was writing the script for this. I do have a script for all of you. I rarely follow it, but there's a couple of questions that if I feel compelled, I'll ask those. I always like to wrap it up with how you inspire me. And our people that have been on the chat know that we're going to end this way every time. And people have said, that this is super interesting. And that's the word over and over, that this is so interesting. And for me, that means that is lit a fire in their hearts and their brain to say, what, how can I learn more about myself? And that's what this is all about, is how can you be the best version of you? No matter what that is, how can you be the best version of you? And that's why we're doing Motivational Mondays, Total Health Tuesdays. Tomorrow we have Wisdom Wednesday. And who's on tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow, speaking of tomorrow, we have the author of Same Kind of Different as Me, Ron and Beth Hall, on tomorrow. And if you have not seen the movie Same Kind of Different as Me, I encourage you to watch it tonight. If you have the book is phenomenal. He was a changer in my soul. Jay's been a changer in my chemistry, which helped my soul. But Ron Hall's book, and his wife Beth Hall be here as well, that book changed my soul about how I look at people. So, but once again, people just really are grateful for your time today. I'm grateful. You inspire me because you just want to keep learning. And I see the stuff you're putting out there, and I'm like, you did something else, and you talk about me going, but you're continuing to dive down these rabbit holes that truly, in 10 or 15 years from now, when the rest of the world says, holy sugar, it was right on the tip of our nose all along, and we weren't looking there. You're actually diving in and looking into that. So you inspire me that way. Plus, thank you for saying yes. Coming to Kansas City, taking my phone calls when I ask for referring somebody in another city, you always respond. So I want to say thank you for being responsive and showing me compassion. I really am grateful.
Oh, 100%. You're one of my favorite people on the planet, and you're doing so much to help so many. It's the least I can do is be part of your fan club and part of your support team. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm grateful. All right, everybody. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow for Wisdom Wednesdays. And just a reminder, we're going to go daily through Friday. Thursday, we have Sonia Choquette, who's an international Intuit. And then Friday, we have Meredith Suarez, who's from the Junior Achievement, right? Junior Achievement in Kansas City. And then we're going to go to Monday, Friday for the month of May so that I don't have these hiccups on Tuesday, Thursdays when I'm at the office seeing clients and push too many buttons on my computer. But we'll go Monday, Friday. We got Adam Hamilton kicking us off next Monday. So, hey, blessings to all of you. If there's somebody you'd love to hear from, send us a note or think about it for tomorrow and put it in the chat section, because I'm having the time of my life getting to connect with friends and actually see your faces. It's so much more fun than my podcast, because my podcast, I'm just talking to somebody, and now I get to see your smiling faces. And some of you, I know you're there, but you're not there, or maybe you're there. At least I see your phone numbers and your names. So, hey, blessings to all of you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Michelle.
Bye-bye.